In this episode we'll visit 3 locations in the northern part of Jutland for some simple yet dramatic photography. This place is just amazing. You wouldn't think that a place like this existed in Denmark. The sky just goes kaboom! In my how to take stunning landscape photos in boring locations video, I made a few points about how you need to embrace minimalism, simplicity, and you rely more on the weather conditions when you photograph in relatively featureless landscapes like those we have quite a lot of in Denmark. In this episode, that's exactly what we are going to do. Alright, so right now we've come down to a beach at a small town called Løkken, and this place is famous for all these beach houses you can see here in the background. Now I put on the long lens because I really need to do some perspective compression, and yes, it is super windy. The conditions are fantastic. We have lots of clouds in the sky and we have the late sun lighting up all these beach houses. If you want the houses lit, it is definitely for sunset that you want to go here. So as I said, I put on the long lens to get the perspective compression. And in this case here, as you can see, I have no tripod, so I can't just handhold it. And since I'm just going to shoot the beach houses, as you can see here behind me, just pretty far away, I don't need to have like the most closed down aperture. Like f11 is probably fine, f10 maybe even, and I simply just focus on the beach houses I want to photograph, and it does give me a shutter speed of about 1/200th of a second. The only issue I have right now at this location is that all the sand, as you can also see here behind me and down here, there are so many tire tracks on this beach, and it does give the foreground a little bit too much texture to my liking. It would be completely optimal if I had like a lot of sand blowing along the beach, but sadly there's simply just not enough sand for that to happen. So compositionally, don't be afraid of not getting the entire row of beach houses in there. Even though it looks super impressive with all of them lined up like this, you might not want to have them all included simply because they become too small within the frame. So don't be afraid of cutting out some of the beach houses. If you want to include a few more beach houses on the left of the frame, then you can always go a little bit closer to the beach houses, because then the angle is a little bit more steep and you actually on the line compress those beach houses even more in that way. So you compress the beach houses by moving away and making the angle to the beach houses a little bit steeper. It gives a little bit more dramatic effect through the frame. There is no exact way to do this, so it is on location. You have to play a little bit around with changing your own perspective. We stayed throughout the sunset where the wind kept pummeling us and a couple of showers passed by. It was quite hard conditions to film in and I preferred to focus my attention on the photos, so I only got a bit of B-roll.
the light just became better and better and better. Instead of sticking to the 100 to 400mm lens, which I initially thought would deliver the photos I wanted, I decided to change to my 24 to 105 as to be able to put a bit more emphasis on the foreground and create a bit more depth and drama with a wide focal length. Although I like the 100 to 400mm photos from a perspective of simplicity, I really also like the more dramatic photos I got with the 24 to 105. And this yet again just goes to show it is good to try something else besides your initial or previsualized ideas and be able to adapt and change on location. Close to Løkken you will also find the iconic dune and lighthouse Knude. As I've already made a couple of videos from this incredible location on this channel, I'll skip it for this series, but if you want to watch my videos from there, which I of course recommend you do, just check out the links in the upper right corner.
So we come out to a place called Asaa or something like that. I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced. And it is full of all these small cottage houses, bathing houses that people probably use during summer when they want to bath in the sea. And yeah, Sophie's playing around somewhere here. And I found this isolated little cute house and I just go completely simple, straight on with the composition, introducing a lot of negative space above the house. And yeah, it's really simple. F11, ISO 100, polarizing filter on, gives me a shutter speed of 1/50th of a second. I have tried to photograph from the other side, but it actually works quite well that the sun lights up the house from the side. The reason why I use so much negative space in these is really just to create a sense of like isolation and making the houses here look even smaller in this big world, in this big terrain. So yeah, this is really nice. I like it. It's so simple. It almost doesn't get more simple than this. And it is one of those shots that might actually work in black and white. Not entirely sure, not promising anything, but it probably could. So I'm just moving along and photographing each of the house one by one. And the one thing that most of them have in common is that the foreground is not really that aesthetic. It looks as if these houses get moved around quite a lot, so there's a lot of sand that looks as if it's getting built here and moved around, so a little bit industrial. So that is the one common factor, which is a little bit hard to deal with all these houses here. They are super pretty in and of themselves, but the immediate surroundings sadly doesn't look too good.
I walked along the line of the small houses and tried to find more that would work with a straight-on perspective, but either I couldn't isolate the houses, or the house in itself or the surroundings weren't aesthetic. I tried with a couple of compositions where I walked in among the houses and came away with a couple of photos I like. I really think the evening atmosphere comes through in these photos. If you struggle with composition in landscape photography, be sure to get my ebook and the follow-up. They are designed to be easy to read and have loads of examples. You can get both of them via the links in the description of this video.
So I've come out here to Hirtshals Lighthouse, and it's one of the really beautiful lighthouses along the Danish coast. We have a lot of them, as you probably know by now. And I have a beautiful simple sunrise, a layer of clouds that has caught fire from the rising sun, and else just clear blue sky. So I'm keeping it as per usual, super simple, super minimal, and yeah, just basically trying to introduce quite a lot of negative space within the frame. You often have to with these lighthouses because they are so tall and slim. I am shooting it with my 24-105mm lens. I have been shooting at about 50mm, and then I'm also zooming a little bit in to 70mm. Besides the focal length, in regard to settings, I am shooting it at ISO 200 and f5 to get a really fast shutter speed of like 1/300th of a second, simply just so I can get a sharp photo, because this wind is just pummeling me. But besides that, super simple from here. So during the Second World War, Denmark was a key strategic country for Germany and Nazi Germany to occupy. And this specific location were quite key for the Germans to occupy, because on the one side we have the North Sea, and on the other side we have Kattegat that leads further into the Baltic Sea. So when the Nazis had both Denmark and Norway, they could control who sailed in and out of the Baltic Sea along the Jutlandic coast, and especially here in the northern part. There are a lot of these bunkers left. A lot of the bunkers were destroyed just after Second World War, because for obvious reasons, but a lot of them are still here, and they function as a museum to the past. And right here, right now, I'm just using these bunkers here in this area here, just as a foreground with leading lines here and here that leads into the background and the lighthouse. I am trying to balance the photo also, so I have the lighthouse a little bit away from the middle and then balance it out with some of the grass over here. I am taking two shots. I'm making two bracketed shots, one with focus on the bunkers and one with focus on the lighthouse. I'm just getting one more here because there's some quite nice clouds just above the lighthouse. And then I'm just getting another one where I focus on the bunkers. So super simple, 2 bracketed shots of 3, focus stacked. So a bracketed shot for the lighthouse and one for the foreground and the bunkers. So I've come out from among the bunkers and I found this really cool composition where I use the waving grass here in the foreground, like this, with all these lines leading up to the lighthouse here. It's quite a simple composition. I'm shooting all the way out at like 26mm or something like that. And I'm simply just waiting for some clouds to come into the scene and create a little bit of interest in the sky. The sun is almost up above the rooftops of the lighthouse buildings. It gives a really nice glow, which I can just emphasize so much in Photoshop. And of course, if you want to learn how to do this, be sure to check out my Photoshop course. There are links down in the description. But yeah, it's again, super simple composition. I am focus stacking this one too because of the wind. I still need quite a fast shutter speed, so I'm shooting right now at f8 and ISO 100 to get a clean photo, and that gives me a shutter speed of 1/25th of a second. 125th of a second. And yeah, now the sun comes and I'll try to benefit from that. So I've come over here to the other side of the lighthouse and I'm trying to just get like a nice contrasty photo. And I'm the first to admit I'm not a big fan of high contrast black and white photos, but when it is very obvious to get, I go for it. And that is what it is right here, right now. And yeah, I have the lighthouse more or less on a completely blank sky. There are a few clouds coming in from time to time I'm trying to catch. But yeah, besides that, f8, 1/40th of a second, ISO 100. And I put on the polarizing filter to really darken down the sky quite a lot. Right now I am using this really cool filter, very new, from H&Y. There's a variable ND filter and a polarizing filter built into one filter. Very easy to attach to the lenses, so I'm using this to my 24-105 and 100-400mm lenses. And yeah, so far so good. It's on Kickstarter and they just sent it to me so I could try it out and give them some feedback. And yeah, I like it. I actually think that this is probably the filter I have enjoyed to use the most because it's so easy to attach. And I only need one because it's a variable neutral density filter and a polarizing filter built into one, and you can decide yourself how much of the polarizing filter is on. Very advanced filter technology, but it seems to work.
If you want to learn about composition in landscape photography or how I edit my photos, there are links to my eBOOKs and Photoshop for Landscape Photographers course in the description, along with a coupon code to save some money. If you haven't seen the first episodes of this series, be sure to do so too. As always, I would highly appreciate both a like and a comment.